Hello there and welcome to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We are glad you're here. Every week we discuss interesting topics and meet interesting people. And well, this week, nothing could be more topical than the upcoming elections. And of course, Mike McCarville is one of the political experts of our time.
Well, he certainly knows more about Oklahoma politics than most. And thank goodness the election is almost here. It seems like it's been a long season. I bet it does for you as well. We are awfully glad Mike would agree to break away from his retirement and join us in talking about the upcoming elections. We're going to talk about a number of different races. This election is going to be very, very significant for the Oklahoma future.
Number of statewide races. Of course, obviously the congressional races are all up, as always. And some state questions. Is the state Senate going to go one way or the other? There's a load to talk about, and Mike McCarville will fill us in with his opinions. You're watching The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and today's guest, Mike McCarville. He'll be with us when we get back.
At Chesapeake Energy, here's a few of our favorite Hornets. Alexis likes reading. Sam enjoys history. Alec loves math. Chesapeake is proud to support both the Oklahoma City NBA Hornets and the Young Hornets at Horace Mann Elementary, where over 150 Chesapeake employees mentor to children each week. The students gain a lot from the experience, but not as much as we do. Chesapeake Energy, committed to building a better Oklahoma.
I'm Dave Bialis. Coming up this month on Generally Speaking, she's the First Lady of Oklahoma basketball. Sherry Cole sits down with us this month. We'll talk about the upcoming season, her aspirations, and the pursuit of a national championship.
You know how it is with anything that you're passionate about. You feel it. You can stay up all night working on it. You're not tired the next day. That's a pretty good sign that it's probably the thing that you should do.
That's Generally Speaking, found only on the Cox Channel.
¿Eres tú?
There you go. Cox Communications está buscando empleados entusiásticos y motivados.
Disfruta de nuestros beneficios, pago competitivo, grandes ventajas y oportunidades para el adelanto.
Si desea hacer una diferencia,
Tenemos un lugar para usted aquí con Cox Communications.
Visítanos en la internet o llame para ver qué oportunidades tenemos para usted aquí en Cox.
¿Eres tú?
Cox Communications está orgulloso de ofrecer igualdad de empleos.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Kent, you want to introduce our guest or just leave it unsaid?
Well, I know I have to introduce him because
probably best left unsaid.
Just trying to save our reputation.
Yeah, I understand.
maybe you can recognize him now that he's retired, kind of. Retired for a short while, Mike McCarville, who is now the producer of the McCarville Report Online, and we will be pulling up that website, not now, but at the end of the show to give your website a little publicity where they can find out what you're thinking about these elections. Of course, Mike is formerly with KWTV, was former talk show host and program director with KTOK. Capital correspondent for a number of years, and basically a guy in Oklahoma who knows more about politics than anybody, and this is a great time of year for him to come on our show and tell you what he's thinking. Mike.
Well, is this an election season? Do we have something going on here that we need to be talking about?
If we don't, we'll make one up. Welcome.
We'll start with the congressional races.
Yes,
Five
sir.
races, 4 of them incumbents. I know somebody who's not on the ballot, but the 5th district ballot between...
But you're in a cookbook.
Well, almost as good. David Hunter, Mary Fallon, your thoughts going into the final days?
A Fallon slam dunk, in my humble opinion. Dr. Hunter, the Democratic nominee, doesn't have much traction here as we approach Election Day, hasn't had. The district vote's overwhelmingly Republican. I think Fallon's in like Flynn, so to speak.
Well, let's go to the governor's race.
Yes.
Let's look at the Brad Henry Ernest Istook race. What do you think about that?
Right now, I mean, I've got to say that Brad Henry obviously is in the driver's seat in that race. Extremely high approval ratings for the governor in every poll we've seen. Those same polls show him vastly ahead of Congressman Istook. And for whatever reason, I think the Istook campaign has had difficulty getting traction in this campaign. And you know, it seems to me that the mantra of the governor, of Brad Henry, during his 4 years in office has been make no mistakes, which is very important, Mr. Mayor, when you're a politician. Make no mistakes. Brad Henry and his people, they've made no serious mistakes. He has avoided angering people by public comments, you know, in a lot of ways, and some issues. Yeah, he's got some people angry, but there's not this undercurrent of I don't like him, da-da-da-da-da. It's just everybody seems to like Brad Henry, or a lot of people do. I think the race is going to tighten as we get to Election Day, but I still see right now a pretty easy run for Governor Brad Henry.
All right, Lieutenant Governor's race. Jerry
Yes,
Askins, the
very important
Democrat.
race.
Todd Hyatt, the Speaker, is running on the Republican side, and then Easy Million comes in as
an independent
third-party
yes.
candidate.
Well, in my opinion, two exceptionally, in my opinion, well-qualified candidates. Jerry Askins, a service in the legislature, very well respected in the community, her own community, and across the state. Todd Hyatt, obviously the Republican Speaker of the House, very well liked, well known around the state, highly respected again. I think that one's going to be very, very close. And the historic implications are pretty clear in this race, because if the Republicans are able to take control of the Senate, depending on how many seats they might win, then the seat of Lieutenant Governor becomes all important, because that is the tie-breaking vote if you have loggerheads in the state Senate. And let's say the Republicans are able to pick up a couple of Senate seats out of the 5 or 6 they have targeted this time around, then you've got an even 24-24 match or somewhere like that. Excuse me. Then the Lieutenant Governor, as I say, becomes the tiebreaker. So whoever emerges from that race victorious, whether it's Jerry Askins or Todd Hyatt, very, very important race this year.
What about the state auditor inspector race? It's an office that's really important.
Oh, it absolutely
to
it
the
is.
functioning of government. We haven't heard a lot about it, but we've heard some with Jeff McMahon and Gary Jones. McMahon.
Yeah.
Gary Jones.
I think that race is going to be one that kicks up in the public awareness level here in the next couple of weeks, primarily because some allegations that have been made about McMahon, and Jones is out there stirring the pot. And I think, you know, that was a very, very close race. This is a rematch. Yeah. And I love rematches. 4 years ago, when McMahon narrowly defeated Jones, I mean, Jones got like 49.3% of the vote. And that was with cockfighting on the ballot that turned out a lot of Democrats in rural Oklahoma. No such issue, on that kind of issue at least, on the ballot this time around. Jones, 4 years ago, ran extremely well in Tulsa County. He beat McMahon over there by 30,000 votes, as I recall.
And Jones has spent 4 years running the state Republican Party.
Absolutely, and he's got a large group, coterie, if you will, of Republican activists who are really out working for him. His is not a well-financed campaign. Matter of fact, he's refused to take contributions from some people. But it's what I call the ground game. The question is, has Jones' ground game all across his state been enough to offset the incumbency that McMahon has and the money he's been able to raise? And I just think that race is going to be one that goes right down to the wire. Could be very, very close.
Tough to beat an incumbent, and
Yes.
that's obviously what's going on in the Attorney General's race
Yes.
as well. Drew Edmondson taking on James Dunn.
I don't see that right now, at least. Things can change, obviously, in a couple of weeks. I don't see that as being a big, close race right now. I think the Attorney General's in pretty good shape. Dunn, I don't think has nearly the financial resources that the Attorney General, the incumbent, does. And I think Drew Edmondson, despite some things that have happened during his career, he remains pretty popular across the state.
Let's switch gears to the state treasurer. Two fairly high-profile people
Yes.
Running against each other. And running roughly against each other. Scott Meacham and Howard Barnett.
Yes. Barnett, of course, being the Republican nominee, won a pretty contentious Republican primary. And has some experience in state government during the Keating administration and during the first part of the Brad Henry administration. Pretty well known, pretty highly respected individual. But again, he's running against an incumbent who literally is not an incumbent in the normal sense. Scott Meacham was appointed to the job by Governor Henry. Of course, when Robert Butkin, one of the finest treasurers we've ever had in the state history, in my opinion, resigned to become dean of the law school at Tulsa University. I think Meacham's going to be exceptionally difficult to defeat. He's made a lot of people very, very happy. His stewardship of state dollars, by all accounts, seems to have been pretty doggone good. He's helped raise a lot of money for state coffers, and I think Mr. Barnett's really got his work cut out for him.
As Istook tries to close the gap in the governor's race, that also has implications for the coattails.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's going to sprinkle down to the other ends of the ballot.
Absolutely.
Are there any races you think are more tied to the governor's race than others?
Well, yeah, it might not be the ones you think about, Mick. Here's what I see, and that's again why this is such an important election year. And I would just say, if people haven't been paying attention, they need to start paying attention. 2 years ago, Republicans took control of the Oklahoma House of Representatives when a lot of people didn't think they had a chance of doing so. Well, there's still a lot of people who say, well, the Republicans never be able to take control of the state Senate. I think this could be the year it happens, and here's why. And again, getting back to your coattails questions, Mick, I don't think Governor Brad Henry, for example, has a lot of coattails in the races immediately below him. I don't think there's going to be many coattails in the race for lieutenant governor, even though Jerry Askins has kind of tried to grab onto those coattails, running television commercials saying he needs a working partner, and that might work there. But then I think you skip down to these key Senate races, and here's why I say this. Democrats, it seems to me, particularly in these 5 or 6 key state Senate races, appear to me to be energized by the prospect of re-electing by a pretty wide margin their Governor Brad Henry. That means a lot of them are going to get out and vote that otherwise might, vote the top of the ticket and then just kind of ignore some of the legislative races. I don't think they'll do that this time around. So I could see literally that enthusiasm for Brad Henry trickling down to some of those state Senate seats, and unfortunately, if some Republicans decide to sit on their hands for one reason or the other and not even go to vote this time, or vote at the top of the ticket and ignore the rest of the ticket, then you're set up for a scenario, and we'll only know the results come election night when we see the ballots count.
Let me jump in here and get us to a break. We're visiting with Mike McCarville. Big election coming up on November 7th. We have more races we want to hear Mike's take on, and we'll be back right after this.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of the verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Shining is taking responsibility. At Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Oklahoma, we know managing your health care can be overwhelming, and it's our job to help you meet the challenge. By guiding, supporting, and showing the way, we encourage you to gain control. Because we believe the best tool we can give you is the confidence to take charge. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Oklahoma, shining through.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB, and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
Who's gonna score? Come on, baby, come on, baby. Go!
Satellite go out again?
Yeah, rain.
But this is just as fun.
Don't live in satellite denial. Get the reliability you expect from Cox, your friend in the digital age.
Not sure where you're headed? NATS can help you find your way. It's the National Athletic Testing System. We call it NATS. You'll call it your launching pad to success. NATS will give you a standardized evaluation that will help you measure your performance and give that information to college coaches so they can accurately evaluate your potential. NATS also helps with academic support. Join with the Oklahoma High School Football Coaches Association and head for success at www.nats.us.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Election Day coming up November 7th. Mike McCarville is here to discuss some of those races.
Last week we had a little boxing match between Lloyd Fields and Brenda Renault, the candidates for Commissioner of Labor.
Those two have been known to put the gloves on every once in a while.
Talking about rematches.
Another rematch. Yes, we've got a number of those this time.
What do you think about that race?
I think Renault is probably in the catbird seat, power of incumbency for name identification across the state, but I would never cross off somebody like Lloyd Fields, former member of the legislature, a guy who's been around the state a lot, in a rematch. I think that race could be very close in the end.
Insurance commissioner. This is an interesting race.
It certainly is.
Holland is the incumbent, but she doesn't enjoy great name ID. And
First time
she came
on the
in
ballot.
Middle of the term.
Again, appointed by Governor Brad Henry when Carol Fisher was forced out of the office. Her opponent is the Republican nominee, Bill Case, a representative from my neck of the woods, Midwest City. You know, when this race really started here a couple of months back, I thought, well, this is, Holland, this is going to be a no-brainer. She's going to walk and talk. Well, then we see one survey that shows Case right on her heels, and then we see another survey that shows Case actually a little bit ahead of her. And I think part of the reason for that may be that Holland just really hadn't been in the news a lot since her appointment, so there's a kind of a lack of familiarity with her. And Case, I know, has been out crisscrossing the state, been running some ads, I understand, in local newspapers, which in a lot of communities, that's how you reach the voters. And haven't seen much out of either one of them in the major media markets yet, but that's going to change in the next couple of weeks. So I've got that race high on my watch this one with a great deal of interest races. I think it's going to be very close.
Another statewide race, Corporation Commissioner with familiar names.
Again,
Bob Anthony
yes.
and Cody Graves, former commissioner.
Yep, I think it's Anthony walks and talks. I don't see any way Graves can come anywhere close to him.
Okay, and localized races now. Oklahoma County District Attorney Wes Lane facing challenges from David Prater.
First, a disclaimer. Wes Lane's been a friend of mine for 25 years. I've done his radio commercials. So with that out of the way, let's just say that the latest survey I saw showed Wes Lane up by 20 plus points, as I recall. I think the power of incumbency is at work here. I think by and large Wes Lane is pretty well perceived, and I think he'll win.
Let's take a look at a couple of localized races, but may have some impact on the balance in the state Senate.
Oh, yes.
What do you think about what's going on over in Tulsa?
Well, I tell you, and this is interesting because two of the most hotly contested races, at least perceptually now, 2 weeks out, that we're really watching are Senate District 2, which is in Creek County, kind of the Sapulpa area. And that race really is a rematch, but not for the state Senate seat. Representative Brian Bingman, the Republican, in this race is up against Democrat John Mark Young, who is the son of former state senator John Young. Senator Young, a friend of mine for many years, a great guy. But at any rate, these guys ran against each other for the House seat that Bingman has now given up to run for the Senate. So here they were. 2 years ago, they're in the House race. Bingman narrowly wins. Now they're in a race for the Senate district. Interesting deal. The National Rifle Association's Political Victory Fund just came out with its ratings recently. And they didn't endorse a candidate in this race, but they rated both of the candidates A, high, just, one step below as high as you can get from the NRA. And which is funny because in the 2 years leading up to this, from 2004 until now, Representative Bingman has had a D grade. Apparently there was a problem with the questionnaire he sent in to the NRA 2 years ago, and because of that problem was rated a D. Well, if that had remained his rating, this could have turned into an issue where just a few votes could revolve around the NRA's rating of these two guys. So as it is, you've got an A and an A, so it's essentially removed as an issue. but these guys are going head to head, and boy, it is one to watch.
Any other state Senate races?
There's another one up there in that same neck of the woods, Mick, up in Tulsa. That is the Senate District, that's 18. Yeah, that's 18. I'm sorry, there's many of them floating around my head. Senate District 18. The incumbent is Democrat Mary Easley from Tulsa. And her opponent is Republican Mark Wofford of Wagner. He's, I believe, a lumber company owner. This is a very, very close race. The Republican Party, Democratic Party, I'm sorry, has gone in there to try to help Easley. And again, speaking of the NRA ratings, they did endorse Easley, the Democrat, in this race. She's given an A+ for her voting record. Wofford is given an A for his answer to the NRA's questionnaires. But they did endorse Easley. Again, in that kind of a district, could be very important, gives Easley a bit of a leg up. Now, what the insiders say is that Wofford is a much more energetic candidate than Easley, and the Democrats pay attention to that kind of talk because they witnessed a younger, more energetic Republican male, Mike Schultz, defeat an older, supposedly less energetic Robbie Kerr in the battle for that what had been a Democratic Senate seat in southwestern Oklahoma. So a lot of attention being paid to the Easley-Wofford race.
Well, we're taping this show before it airs by some span, and I say that because the national temperature could change.
Oh, absolutely.
But how does the president's approval ratings and the Republican House and Senate approval ratings in general affect our local races? Do you see a tie there?
Well, here is my concern. The thing I see that could happen is some Republicans could become so dispirited over the president's low approval ratings, what we're told over and over are his low approval ratings, and the fallout from the Foley scandal, that some Republicans just decide, I'm just disgusted, I'm not going to go vote. So if there's any kind of drop-off in the Republican turnout, advantage Democrats. Why? Because the Democrats are energized by having Brad Henry at the top of the ticket, and everybody's saying, "Oh, let's go out to vote. You know, we can take those Republicans down a notch." And that's that could be a possible outcome of all of this.
You know, we've got about a minute left. I think a significant amount of our people just might want to know what you're doing. You have left KTOK. What are you doing these days?
At the end of the year, determined that I was going to do some traveling, take a little retirement time. I did that for about 3 weeks. And my wife said, "Look, you got to find something to do." In 1980, I established the McCarville Report, political newsletter here in the state. And for the last 13 years, it's been published by my friends Neva and Harry Hill. I had an opportunity to reacquire the publication. I did so, took it online. Been doing that now for a couple of months. It's known as the McCarville Report Online, and it's keeping me plenty busy.
All right.
Are you having fun?
Yes, sir.
We've got the website that we can put up on the screen if people would like to hear more from Mike McCarville. I can't imagine you have an opinion you haven't espoused here, but there you see it on your TV screen right there. Mike, thanks very much for coming on. As always, you're one of our most entertaining guests, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, James.
Come back again.
All right. And Kent and I'll be back with the final word after this.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
1 in 4 women will be a victim of domestic or sexual violence in their lifetime.
That's too many.
That's why we want you to know that if you or someone you know is suffering at the hands of an abuser, there is help. Call the Oklahoma Safe Line at 1-800-522-SAFE for access to state and local resources that can truly make a difference. Call anonymously, call toll-free, call today, because domestic violence is not a game. It's life or death.
I'm Chris Paul.
And I'm Dave Lyles with some of our friends from the Boys and Girls Clubs in Oklahoma. Growing up is tough. Everyone needs a fun and safe place to learn and grow.
Boys and Girls Clubs offer programs that instill a sense of pride, purpose, and belonging. Club kids have grown up to become movie stars and, yes, even basketball legends.
We hope you'll join Cox, Oklahoma in supporting the Boys and Girls Club.
Get involved with your local club today because it truly is
a positive place for kids.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mike's website address is a little bit unique. I want to draw attention to people. There's no dot after www, so it is www.tmr.blogspot.com. It's a confusing guy and he has a confusing web address.
Yeah, but there's good information on it. It's worth your while.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about my favorite subject.
Which is?
The cookbook from Edmond Family Counseling.
Sure. How could
One
I
more
forget?
time, I want to remind you about the cookbook produced as a Centennial Cookbook by Edmond Family Counseling. The website where to get it is there in front of you. You can see it's edmondfamilycounseling.org. $22, a great bargain, and the money goes for a wonderful purpose.
Always interesting to talk about elections, and the coattail questions still to me is significant, especially because a lot of these races are going to be so close. But everything that's going on in Washington, how is that going to affect voter turnout and how people decide to vote on November 7th? And then you have how is the governor's race going to affect other issues that are down ballot? Because with the state Senate seat up for grabs and so many other elections that are going to be closely decided, this is a very interesting year for political.
It is. 4 state questions on the ballot we didn't get a chance to talk about, but basically they're not particularly interesting or fun, or we'd have talked about it.
And we have a website at The Verdict, theverdict.tv. You can go to this website and you can tell us about a topic that you'd like to hear on a future edition. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We will see you next time on another edition of The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced by the Production Services Group at Cox Communications, exclusively for the Cox Channel.